Hi everyone, this is Anna Finch from Finch Press Publishing. Now today's video is a book review of The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. There will be some spoilers for this novel throughout the video, so if you haven't read it, I suggest you go read it before you watch it. Now, the novel, Woman in the Window, is about a woman named Anna Fox who's agoraphobic. She never leaves the home because she gets panic attacks and she can't go outside because of this, and a whole other thing. It comes with a whole other range of issues. Now, because she's agoraphobic, she doesn't leave the house. She watches the world through her window. She takes photos and tries to work out what certain people's lives are like, and it's her only real contact with the outside world. The only exception being her husband and her daughter that I mentioned at the beginning. Now, you eventually find out that her husband Ed and her daughter Olivia actually died, and that she's been hallucinating their visits and their talks on the phone. That was a pretty good twist. I didn't really think that she was hallucinating. At some points, yeah, it sounded a bit unreliable, but I didn't think she was hallucinating her family. So that twist was pretty good. Now, a family moves in across the street, the Russells. You got the wife, husband, and the son, teenage son. Now, something happens on Halloween, people egg her house, and a woman helps her back in. She assumes that it's Jane Russell, the wife of Alistair Russell, who lives across the street. By then, she'd already met the son. She basically develops friendship, they talk, they have fun, and she then sees something a couple of nights later that she wasn't supposed to. She sees the woman that she believed to be Jane Russell being murdered. She calls the police in a panic. None of the police believe her because they think she's hallucinating because her drugs cause hallucinations. She has a blood alcohol limit, like two times the limit, I believe. The husband says, "No, you've never met my wife," and you see this woman who doesn't look like the woman that was described as Jane Russell. You eventually learn that the woman, his wife, the one that was introduced, was the real Jane Russell, and the woman that she knew, and the one she believed to be Jane Russell, was not. It was Ethan's biological mother. Now, Anna is an unreliable narrator. She takes medication with alcohol, which you're not supposed to do. It can cause side effects, and things like hallucinations are pretty common. Even if you don't take your medication at the exact same time as drinking alcohol, if the medication is still in your system and you drink alcohol 1-2 hours later, your body and your brain will slow down. Your reactions won't be good. Things like tempers or not knowing where you are, confusion, it can enhance the effect of the alcohol. So I sort of get how she can be really unreliable. Now, this book started off really, really slow. I read up to the first 20 pages and I was bored. I took it with me to work to read it at work. Couldn't be bothered reading it because I was bored. I only finished reading it today because I'm sick and I could not be bothered writing anymore for my novel today. So I finished it, forced my way through it. I was bored until about page 143-ish, which is like chapter 32, which is when the twist, or when you find out this woman is being murdered. That's when it started to get interesting. So I'm about 100 pages in, bored as hell, and it's only when we get to the point where you see a woman being murdered that I was interested. Um, After that, I ended up speed reading through the novel because it started to get interesting. Slow start, but it started to get interesting. And I sort of liked it. I mean, there were bits I didn't like. Um, and this way the chapters are broken up, you got some chapters that are like paragraph long, you got some chapters that are 5 pages, you got chapters that are half a page. The length of the chapters wasn't even. Like, you don't obviously stop. You can't expect every single chapter to be the same amount of pages. But going from, like, there's generally an average normally, um, but because it's an unreliable narrator, you can sort of have those little breaks in the chapters the way they have been. Um, Now, one thing I really didn't like was the ending. Now, the ending came out of nowhere. Ethan, he wasn't a really well developed character, neither was Anna, but he wasn't well developed. But the way he was written and the way Anna observed Ethan, which was a bit creepy and not exactly an appropriate relationship when it comes to a teenage boy and an adult. The way she described him, he seemed like he lived in a family where his father was overbearing, controlling, violent, and aggressive. There were no clear signs that this boy was violent. There was no clear signs that this boy was a psychopath. Now, yes, I know psychopaths are charming. They are very manipulative. They can twist events. Okay, I know that. But Anna, she's a child psychologist, for God's sake, and she didn't recognize those signs in the boy. Like, even if she noticed something odd about his behavior, and she sort of makes a connection to something, maybe a film that she watched, maybe a bit of her studies, and she feels like a bit of unease about it, and giving you subtle hints like that where she's at times feels a little bit of unease with Ethan because of the way he acts, or there's like something hidden in his behavior and something doesn't feel right. If it was written like that, like Anna saw him, she believed he's a good kid, but there were instances where in the communication or the way the character was presented that something was off. If it was hinted at that something was off, even if she was putting the pieces together and then dismissing it, then it would have been more believable because you've got those building blocks. So even if Anna didn't recognize those signs or dismissed those signs, as long as those signs were present when we were reading, then I would have found it more believable for Ethan to have killed his biological mother. Uh, Pretty cold-hearted as well. But there's none of that. Ethan is presented as a boy who lives in a family that's violent. And honestly, I believe that I honestly thought he was just scared and was trying to protect his dad. So I didn't really see this coming, and I know with thrillers you need to have twists that come out of nowhere, but they don't really come out of nowhere. The twists are like threaded throughout, hinted, and you work it out. This ending literally came out of nowhere. There was no build up, no hint for it, nothing. Now, I like reading books where there's a psychopath. Okay? Psychopaths and sociopaths are interesting. In a novel writing standpoint, you don't want to be around a psychopath, especially. So I like reading that sort of thing in a book. But this wasn't presented well enough. Okay? I'm planning on writing a book where there's one from the perspective of a psychopath with a couple of other, like, multiple POV book, which has a character that's a psychopath and a normal character, to show how, okay, one person, how the victim would view this charming personality, to give you that sort of thing. But even if it was like you've got a character, even though she's traumatized, an alcoholic, she takes medications and she's unreliable as a narrator, she's been presented as a qualified person with a PhD. I'm assuming you need that to be a psychiatrist or a child psychologist. If she has a job that means she works with kids and works with psychology and diagnosing um, neuroatypical disorders or personality disorders, then she needs to be able to bloody identify those signs in other people. Otherwise, she doesn't really do her job. Like, have her identify those signs, question it, and then dismiss it. Okay? Because she is desperate for some sort of connection. That would be believable. But this, it's not. Um, Anna, honestly, I actually thought she was the one that killed it because she was hallucinating. She was high on drugs and alcohol. I actually believe either she did it or the husband did it. I didn't even think it was the son. Reason why I thought Anna even did it was because she came off stalkerish. The way she watched people out of her window, yes, I know it's her only way to interact with the world, but constantly taking photos, developing those photos, and then after the murder, like literally following and calling a teenage boy, it's not appropriate. Her actions were not appropriate when it came to Ethan. Okay, even if she was his psychologist, okay, you have to have professionalism. You need to keep your distance. And even though she wasn't acting in the position of a child psychologist, she still has a responsibility to act professionally if she's still got an active qualification. Doesn't matter if she's not actively practicing. She's got a professional responsibility. And those interactions with Ethan were completely inappropriate. Okay? At some points, yeah, her being worried and trying to offer him an out, okay, understandable and human. But the interactions, the way she talked, the way she observed him wasn't. And the fact that she was like watching through the windows into their house, like honestly, I thought she was the killer. She seemed stalkery enough. She was high on meds. And I didn't care about the characters. I mean, I wasn't attached to any of the characters. I wasn't attached to Anna emotionally. I didn't really care what happened to Anna. I didn't care about Ethan or Jane or Alistair. I mean, sometimes when they're presented, they seem interesting, but I didn't really care about them or what happened to them. I just wanted to know what happened in the end because I was curious. Um, so this book was okay. The Woman in the Window was okay. It wasn't a bad book or a bad read. It was pretty slow to start with. I think I got about up to here before I got interested. So it was slow to start. Didn't care about any of the characters or what happened to them. I just wanted to know what happened at the end because I got curious. And I didn't like the ending. The ending was not great. But I liked it better than One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. And I picked up One of Us is Lying because it was recommended to me and the blurb and cover was interesting. It was a murder mystery. Till I read the ending. Till I got bored and then read the ending. I was disappointed. At the very least, The Woman in the Window fits within the genre. It had the tropes that I was expecting. And it presented it in a way that was accurate. So I would give it maybe 3.5 stars. It was a good read. Wasn't absolutely fantastic, but it was good. Despite the key problems I found. So yeah, it was pretty good. Not the best. And considering what I've read about the author, yeah, I'm probably not going to read or buy any of his books, which is why I borrowed it from the library. So yeah. Anyway, if you like this video, hit the like button down below. And if you want to be notified of when I upload, press the subscribe button. See you next time.